Trump asks the Supreme Court to let the White House ballroom construction go on. The former president filed a petition seeking to keep the project moving, arguing that the construction is essential for the White House's operations and that the court should not halt it. The request comes amid debates over federal spending and historic preservation. The Supreme Court will decide whether to hear the case and potentially set a precedent for future federal construction disputes. The request was filed with the Supreme Court, which may now review the case. The petition challenges a federal court order that halted the ballroom construction. If the Supreme Court grants the request, the construction could resume. The decision will involve complex questions about executive authority, budget oversight, and historic preservation. The outcome remains uncertain, and the court's ruling could set a precedent for future federal construction disputes. The outcome remains uncertain, and a ruling could set a precedent for future federal construction disputes. The case highlights tensions between executive authority and judicial oversight. It also raises questions about budgetary oversight and historic preservation at the White House. The Supreme Court's decision will influence how federal construction projects are managed and could affect future projects across the country. A study shows DI-focused firms outperformed rivals, with revenue growth up 12% versus 5% for non-DEI peers. The data comes from a 2026 survey of 200 U.S. companies that maintain diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives despite political pressure. Analysts note that these firms also reported higher employee retention and stronger customer loyalty. The findings suggest that inclusive practices can translate into measurable financial gains. The same study found that DI-focused firms experienced a 12% revenue increase, compared to 5% for companies that scaled back such policies. Employee turnover fell by 8% in inclusive firms versus 15% in others. Customer satisfaction scores were also higher, with a 10-point lift on average. These metrics point to a link between diversity initiatives and broader business performance. The study's authors caution that the data may be limited to a specific sample of firms, and broader generalization requires careful consideration. They note that the sample included 200 U.S. companies, but industry representation varied. The authors also acknowledge that external factors, such as market conditions, could influence the observed performance differences. Further research is needed to confirm these findings across a wider range of businesses. Woman charged over vandalism of Washington's World War II memorial. A woman was arrested and faces charges for spray painting the memorial in Washington, D.C. The incident was reported by Reuters on August 14, 2026. The case is still in its early stages, and the legal outcome remains uncertain. The legal outcome of the vandalism case remains unclear. Authorities have not yet announced a verdict, and the woman charged faces an uncertain future. The incident highlights tensions over public memorials and civil disobedience, but the broader societal impact is still to be seen.